as well as Dennis has been kind enough to supply me with a whole host of questions from the community, and so we'll address those so that everyone can see what the answers are. And then we'll go through a Q&A for as long as you'd like. So we'll get started first by just kind of bringing you up to date on why we're talking today. So I came to the district 8 years ago, took over from the previous general manager, and that's when I learned about the unique relationship between Apache Shores and the district. You are very unique. I've reached out to multiple WCIDs across the state, and the reality is that we're one of the only ones with out-of-district areas that are treated as normal customers. And so normally when you have an out-of-district area, it's a wholesale arrangement. And you sell the water to whoever operates that out-of-district area, and it's their own separate water system, and they handle it. So our relationship is unique. It's not common, and so it gives us some very unique challenges that we're going to have to figure out how to solve. So back in 2022, if everybody remembers, we had the issues in Maui that caused some pretty significant fire damage in the community there. And it really got me thinking about the fire conditions of our systems across our district. And what I was most concerned about were our out-of-district areas. And so we asked our engineering staff to conduct a waterline assessment. The district has a waterline replacement plan that we update every 5 years. All of the water lines that are in your updated waterline plan that we're going to talk about today have been in our system the whole time. We've known that they needed to be upgraded. The problem is that they were installed by the original developer. A lot of them were put in, so for reference, I'll tell you that a water line should normally be somewhere around 4 feet below ground level. Many places in Apache Shores, we're talking 6 inches. And a truck drives off the side of the road, bang, breaks a line. And not only that, but there's many areas where things like electrical conduit were used as water lines, as cost-saving techniques, we'll call it, by the original developer. And so it just creates a situation where you have a lot of water lines that need work. The thing that I think that the district didn't appreciate was the amount of adequate fire flow that exists within your service area. So that was one of the, as you can see on the screen, one of the things that we take into account. First of all, it's material condition, history of the lines, what kind of line breakage takes place over the years, and then whether or not those lines can provide adequate fire flow to the community. So based on that, we've identified 46 water lines within Apache Shores that need to be upgraded. The unfortunate part is that cost is, in 2024 dollars, was $59.7 million. That's on the high side, I'll be honest with you, because we use a 30% contingency when we calculate these things, because we can't be sure how many years it'll be before we can actually replace that line, and we need to ensure that when we get to that point, the money will be available. So 75% of the water lines that service your area, unfortunately, provide either inadequate or no fire flow at all. 15% of those provide what we call inadequate fire flow, which means it's anything less than full maximum fire flow. That's rated at 1,500 gallons per minute. So you have a number of 6-inch lines in your community. Those provide, depending upon the elevation, somewhere around 1,000 gallons per minute in fire flow. The problem really is that 60% of your water lines don't provide any fire flow at all, which means that they're smaller than 6 inches in diameter, and they're just not capable of carrying the amount of water that the fire department needs without exceeding the velocity limits that the lines themselves hold. So, just a little bit of history. A lot of you probably know this stuff, but there's probably some new owners in the room that may not be familiar, so I'll just cover it quickly. In 1997, the Apache Shores Water Corporation was providing you with inadequate water, both in pressure, volume, and in quality. The system was taken into what they call receivership by the Texas Commission on Environmental Quality, which at the time was Texas Natural Resources. And so that's essentially like being put into foreclosure. The previous group was not trusted to operate the system any longer. The Apache Shores POA approached the WCID17 Board of Directors and requested for us to provide services to your area. At that time, an agreement was made between our board president and the president of the Apache Shores Board that if we agreed to provide services to your community would join our district. Unfortunately, it just didn't happen. And I don't know, I wasn't here, right, in 1998. I can't tell you how. I suspect it had a whole lot to do with maybe us not pushing it as much as we should have and the community not realizing the steps that had to fully get taken in order for that to happen. But either way, you didn't join the district, which means that you stayed what we call out of district. And some advantages, you didn't have to pay any tax rate to the district. You didn't pay our O&M tax since 1997, so that's a good thing. The bad thing is that by not joining the district, you took on responsibility for the financial upkeep of your own system. And so we are able to finance that by charging you what we call an out-of-district fee, which obviously none of our other customers that are in district have to pay. Okay, so there's some different fees that have to get paid by Apache Shores customers, and sometimes this can be a little confusing, especially if you've just moved here or bought here. We have what we call our debt service fee, and that is paid by all accounts that are active within Apache Shores. Specifically, we had to take out a bond when we first connected your system to ours. We had to install new water lines to connect our system into yours, and then install some pressure regulating equipment that would allow the two systems to work well together. So that debt service fee will be paid off in 2027, and then it will go away. For the customers that were existing at the time that we took over, there was about 500 customers at that time. They didn't have the money up front to buy into our system. So when a new house gets built, you have to pay what we call an impact fee, which is kind of like buying stock in WCID17. It guarantees that you'll have water supplied at your property for the life of your property. But the customers at that time didn't have a couple $1,000s just laying around. And so we financed that for them. So those customers pay a capacity buy-in fee as well. That will also get paid off in 2027. It's part of the same bond that was used to connect the two water systems. So that's why you may talk to your neighbor and you're paying a capacity buy-in fee and a debt service fee and they're not. It's because they may have built their house after that time period, and then whoever built it paid for that impact fee at that time. Okay, and then we get to the out-of-district fee. So that's designed to ensure that the district's expenses for operations and maintenance to provide you all with 24-hour services when and if water breaks or outages take place are covered, plain and simple. So up until this year, half of that fee went to the district for those purposes, and half of that fee was segregated into a capital improvement fund for your system. And we've used that over the years to do waterline improvements. I'll say that until I got here, the district didn't ignore the fact that we needed to improve your water lines, but we were only doing it at the rate at which we collected funds from you. And unfortunately, that was at a much lower out-of-district rate. So when I came to the district, our out-of-district fee was $12 per month. Recognizing that there was a significant deficiency between the rate at which we were collecting money and the rate at which we needed to replace your water lines, we have increased that out-of-district fee every year since I've been in the district. So last year, and what has got us all started talking about this now, the board made the decision to double the fee and raise it to $80 per month. And I'll show you in a little bit how those monies are being collected. Okay, so the out-of-district fee does two things. Like I said, prior to last year, we were putting 50% towards district expenses and 50% towards capital improvement. We doubled the fee. We had no desire to double the amount that the district was taking from you. Okay, so now only 25% of that fee goes to the district, which is the same amount, $20 per month that we were keeping before. The other $60 goes into this capital improvement fund for all of you so that we can replace these water lines. The problem is that at the old rate, at $40 per month, it would take me 200 years to collect the amount of money necessary to replace the water lines. A brand new water line built to the best specifications is rated to last for 75 years. So I think you can see that we would never have ever replaced all of your water lines and kept them replaced on a timely fashion if we had maintained the old fee rate. So that's the reason why the board decided to double the fee, so that we could increase the timeline, or I should say shrink the timeline for replacing some of these water lines. So currently, $20 is being paid into the district. That brings about $330,000 a year into the district. If you were paying M&O, because I want to give you some comparison, right? So if you were paying the M&O tax rate based upon the assessed value of the land in Apache Shores, you'd be contributing about $450,000 a year to the district. So I think we have, on the surface, you see these numbers and they look like a ton of money, okay? But I just wanted to point out that I think we have been bringing you a good value for our service over the years. We've been charging you less than we would have charged you had you been paying tax rates. The remaining $60 a month is now being, again, segregated just like we did before so that we can pay for waterline improvements. So looking back since 2011, the district's collected a little bit over $1.8 million from the residents of Apache Shores to go towards your capital improvements. In July of 2011, we completed the General Williamson waterline replacement. That was $1.4 million. In May of 2017, we did Platte Pass and Rainwater for a little over $300,000. And a few years back, we completed the Red Fox waterline project to the tune of about $500,000. Sorry, I'm getting over a little bit of a cold, so bear with me if I need to keep wetting my whistle while we talk. You currently have about $1 million in the bank set aside for waterline improvements. So in total, we've spent a little over $2.2 million since 2011 on waterline projects in Apache Shores. We've collected about 1.8, and you've got about $1 million in the bank. That doesn't include the $500,000 that we invested in the new AMI meters within your district, which are a pretty large investment in the infrastructure, which will pay for themselves over time, but definitely I believe will show their value and increase service to you, the district, to you and to us. Okay, so where do we go from here, right? We're currently collecting $80 a month. 75% of that is being redirected into capital improvement so that we can start working towards replacing these water lines. The reality for us is that if I want to replace these water lines in what I consider to be a reasonable time period, which is about 10 years, just based on the volume of water lines, that's how long it would take us. I'm going to have to increase your out-of-district fee, if that's the only funding mechanism, to about $300 per month, which I know is ridiculous, and for many people is completely not a thing that you can handle, right? If I was in your shoes, I would feel exactly the same way, and I'd be shouting from the mountaintops that this is a load of BS, okay? That doesn't change the fact that we have to figure out how to solve the problem, though. Okay, I tell you these numbers so you can see the scale of the issue, all right? Okay, so let's talk options, right? The first option, and in my personal opinion, I hope to be able to show you the best option, is to have Apache Shores join the district. By joining the district, you know, some things are gonna have to happen. We'll have to do a petition, which is what my staff in the back of the room are here to collect signatures for, if anyone's willing to do that at the conclusion of our discussion. We then have to hold an election. We have to then have some board meetings that approve these things, and the process can play out. But at the end of the day, what we would be able to do is to sell a bond on behalf of Apache Shores that would give you a much longer runway to repay, which would lower the amount that we have to collect every month in order to meet those debt service obligations, and would allow us to conduct the work in a reasonable time period, which is that kind of 10-year zone, okay? We'd have immediate access to the money, that's the advantage, so we could start work right away, okay? Option two is basically like, hey, we're not interested in joining the district. If that's the direction we go, right, I can tell you that the board is going to ensure that the water lines get replaced. How that will play out, whether they decide to fund it through out-of-district fees or whether or not they decide to seek out, you know, grants, low-interest loans, things of that nature to bring the cost down, it's still going to result in your out-of-district fee having to be set at a level where the collections allow me to make the annual debt service payment, okay? The unfortunate facts here are that it's not fair for us to go to people on Hudson Bend or Cardinal Hills or in Steiner Ranch and say, hey, we need you to pay for the waterline improvements in this area where you don't live and you won't gain any benefit from the expense. It'd be the same thing as if I came to you all and said, hey, I need to raise your rates so that I can fix the wastewater treatment plant in Steiner Ranch, but you don't get any benefit from that, okay? I realize it's a hard thing to hear, but it's just the truth, right? And I prefer to operate in facts whenever possible so we can make good decisions. The facts in this case are a little bit ugly, okay? They're not horrible because I think we've come up with some pretty good ideas on how we can improve your options, and we're going to cover those in just a second. The third option is that we go through some sort of combination of the first two, okay? We seek outside funding. We also hope to bring you within the district. I've spoken with the fire chief. He is more than willing to go with us to the commissioner's court and speak with them and try to get some assistance from the county as well. I think that there's an appetite, we'll say, for that. I've spoken with Commissioner Ann Howard and Bridget Shea, who represent this general area. I know Ann Howard is your representative, but Bridget Shea has a similar situation with the River Ridge community at the tail end of Steiner Ranch, because they're in the same boat that you're in. It's just same scale, they're just smaller because it's a smaller community over there. And so we've had some really good conversations with them on how we can go out and seek this funding, whether it be either free or low interest loans through the Water Development Board or through the State Water Fund. So some of the advantages to joining the district, first and foremost is representation. It's an opportunity for anyone who is a landowner or a resident and legally allowed to hold public office to run for the board. And help to make the decisions. I mean, I'll be honest with you, you guys represent 11% of my customer base. And the fact that you don't have a voice on our board of directors, to me, is patently wrong. But you're not eligible unless you join the district. It's just the way that the system works. So I would love to see the day where we had 1 or 2 people, or 3 or 4 or 5, on the WCID17 board. All of our board seats are publicly elected and they're open board seats, which means that if 3 of them are up for election next year, which they will be, 3 people from Apache Shores could get voted in, right? Just as easily as from any other particular area within the district. I think you're going to see improved services after joining the district because we're going to be able to fix these lines in a pretty quick manner. Part of the expense, and the reason why this is so expensive, is the fact that Travis County requires us to fix whatever roads we do back to county standards as close as we can. And so part of that is, which means that you'll get a full road overlay on the roads that we work on. And I know that that is an expense that you all currently handle through your POA. I'm not claiming it's going to be a huge cost savings to you, but it is a large cost savings. Road work is not cheap. And so wrapping that into this is at least something. To me, obviously, the most important thing is a fire protection, right? I know from Chief Abbott and what he spoke to your water committee about, their greatest fear is some sort of a high wind conflagration here in this area. You have some steep gullies and valleys where fire with high winds moves quickly. And without the ability to combat it with anything other than portable fire trucks that have to go get refilled, there could very easily reach a point where they have to just pull back, okay? And so that's one of the fire department's fears, and I think that's something that we would love to see get corrected for you in your peace of mind. Hopefully that would come with some sort of insurance savings as well, but I'm not an insurance agent, so I can't guarantee that. But it seems relatively common sense to me, but who knows? I hope it will. Would I still be paying all of these fees if you join the district? So the debt service and capacity buy-in fees go away in 2027, as I previously said. So those will go out the window. The out-of-district fee goes away completely the day you join the district, okay? You would have to pay our tax rate, which you can see there on the board. It's a little bit over 5 cents per $100 of assessed value of your property. It's pretty cheap, is all I can tell you. I've been in the district for 8 years, like I said earlier. Every year we have held our tax rate the same or lowered it, okay? I think we have a very good financial history at the district. I don't want to, toot my own horn. I will just say that the district in general is very well managed from a financial standpoint. And I would be shocked if this number were to rise, to be honest with you. But to give you full clarity, we're limited by law. We can't go above 6 cents without holding a district-wide election and having it be approved by all of our ratepayers and taxpayers. Okay, so what would your tax rate look like? Let's say that you decide this is the best thing you've ever heard, you're ready to sign up, let's do it. Okay, so we calculated a $59.7 million bond at 5.25%, which is high. It's a conservative number. And what that comes out to is a 37-cent tax rate, okay? So what I can tell you is that is not that high in the realm of infrastructure tax-related bonds. It just isn't. And so for give you a point of reference, the Serene Hills defined area was formed 7 years ago. Work was completed there 3 years ago. Their tax rate is right around 69 cents right now. And so nobody likes to pay tax. I'm not pretending that this is a wonderful thing, okay, but I'm just trying to give you some scale. I think for the average home value here in Apache Shores, this represents a significant savings over what you would potentially have to pay if we had to fund these improvements purely through an out-of-district fee. And again, I'm not blind to the fact that this is a shocker to a lot of people, and the numbers we're talking about are numbers that may make the difference between somebody having to decide whether or not to sell their home. Okay, I wasn't born yesterday. I fully recognize the ramifications of the choices that are going to have to get made. Okay, so let's say that you decide you want to join the district, right? So we would first have to have a petition, which is what my team in the back is here doing. We have to get a majority of the value, the assessed value of the Apache Shores area to sign on the dotted line requesting that we hold an election. That's all the petition does. It doesn't approve you to join the district. It doesn't even state how you're going to vote. All it does is allow us to have an election. That's it. So assuming that we cross that hurdle and we get 50% plus $1, the board would then receive the petition. We'd hold a hearing on it. Community would have the opportunity to speak. And then the board would decide whether or not you represent what we call a feasible, practical, and an advantageous addition to the district. I can tell you from speaking to the board that they already feel that that is the case. And so I'm quite confident we would move through that relatively quickly. We would get that recorded at the county with our public records, and it would be posted. And then we would have to reach out to the city of Austin to get their consent. That might sound a little strange, but the Apache Shores area is within the limited purpose district of the city of Austin. And so if we're going to annex you into our service area, they have to sign off, okay? I don't anticipate any pushback from the research that our legal team has done. The city has not denied any of these similar consents in the past, and so there'd be no reason for them to do so now, but I just want to give you the facts. Then we would hold a special election. Okay, within that election, everyone here in Apache Shores, if you're a legal voter, you're allowed to vote. And there could be 15 of you in one house or one person in one house. Whoever lives there and is a resident, they can all vote. Okay? And then it just comes down to whether or not it passes. Again, 50% plus one vote is passing. The district itself would also hold an election. Where we would have to, the other residents of the district would have to vote to endorse you to joining the district. Again, I don't anticipate this being a problem. The district has formed numerous, what we call defined areas over the history of our existence, and we've never had any of them be denied. And so it's a normal tool used by districts like ours for growth, and so I think it's well accepted by our constituency, and I don't see that we would have a real problem there. So we hold the special election following a few things. We have to go to the board meeting. They have to approve we'll put together what we call a capital improvement plan. That gets approved. The secretary of our board will provide notices. And then in October, we'll have another board meeting with a public hearing. We'll go over everything again. And then we move forward, hopefully, to the May election. Okay? I know I went through that a little quickly, but copies of all of this, including the full timeline, are in the back of the handout packets, which are available in the back of the room. And they'll also be made available to the POA so they can put them online for everyone to reference. So some of the common questions that we've received from the Water Committee. So first off was, has the scope of the water line replacement been finalized? And if so, can we update that information? What I'll tell you is that the capital improvement plan has been finalized through the engineers. It's at my level for staff review, and then our board will review it. But nothing has changed from what I've shared with you in the handout and what we've been talking about up to this time period. We're still looking at the same 46 water lines. What we've done as part of the capital improvement plan is to segregate those into what we call 5 phases, with the hope that we would be able to do them basically in sensible units where we're doing streets that are connected so that we're not disturbing the entirety of the community at any one particular time. What I'll tell you is that construction is no fun for residents, okay? I understand that, but it is a cost of progress. And so, when we get to that point, regardless of how we get to that point, I would ask for your forbearance, but I would also ask you to keep the POA and my team informed, because sometimes the contractors do things that we would wish they didn't, and we can't fix that without good involvement from the community. So with regards to the project, is it a simple replacement of the line or a complete redesign? So all line work conducted by the district is a complete redesign. We abandon the old lines in place 9 times out of 10 because it's just simple, cheaper, and efficient to do that. And it's a completely new setup. We have to obey not only our own construction requirements, but the construction requirements from Travis County as well. Is there a master capital expense plan? Yes. So we do 5 and 10-year planning. We have a capital improvement plan for each of our major systems. And then we have an overall, what I call, it's not a capital improvement plan, it's a capital maintenance plan to maintain this equipment over the long haul. Can we provide water line replacement procedures and timelines, and are these different for defined areas and out-of-district areas? No, they're not different. It's the same standard applied across the entirety of the district, whether it's a in-district or out-of-district neighborhood. All of those are available on our website, and they're in our rules and policies. And if anyone would like guidance on how to access that information, all you have to do is reach out to myself or my executive assistant, who's Paula Neely, who was in the back, and I think she might have stepped outside for a minute, but I will point her out when we get to the end. Although early in the project planning, it would be helpful to know if WCID17's general project procedures and timelines. So this is a bit variable. I will say, in general, from the time that we decide we're going to replace a water line, it's 18 to 24 months to actually let the contract, which means award the contract. And that's time for design, it's time for advertising and taking in public bids. All of these projects are going to fall within the scope of the state of Texas requirements for open bid. And so we'll advertise the projects. Any contractor can apply as long as it meets the restraints that we put on the contract. We open those in a public format, read out all the numbers, and then the board reviews them all at the next board meeting. I would say 95% of the time, the work is awarded to the lowest bidder, plain and simple. The only exceptions I've seen to that is when we've had a bidder that has a history of safety-related issues. And so the board is established a pretty solid pattern that they're not going to award contracts to contractors that don't have an exemplary safety rating. So if Apache Shores remains an out-of-district fee area, how often can you expect your fees to increase? I can't really answer that, to be honest with you. It's a board of directors level decision. I would say it's an annual review, normally. What we do is I work through the budget. We are on an October 1 budget year, and so that process for us starts in May of each year. And we usually have a 90% solution on the budget by August. And then the board of directors will vote on that budget and approve it in September. Your rates are always part of that budget process. And so I wouldn't expect it would change any more often than that. If we moved forward without you joining the district, and meaning that the out-of-district fee was going to stay in place, I would expect that the board would set, because remember I said we're going to try to approach this work in phases. I showed you the tax rate at $59 million, with a $59 million bond, so you could see the worst case scenario. The likely scenario is that we would sell smaller bonds in chunks as we move along. So we're ready to do phase one, let's say it's $12 million. We would go sell a bond for $12 million, do that work. 18 to 24 months later, we would be getting ready for the second one. So in that 2-year period, you would be paying an out-of-district fee that allows me to repay that first bond. And so basically, I would envision it every 2 years, it's going to go up as we sell bonds until it gets to whatever the final level is going to be. And then how much do they go up? Like I said, that would be dependent upon what we need in order to make those financial payments every year. Do property owners that own more than one property have the opportunity for multiple signatures on the petition? The answer is yes. They can sign for each one of their properties depending upon what they think is appropriate for them. If we were to join WCID17, would a seat get added to the board? No. They're all, like I said earlier, they're open board seats. And so everyone is welcome to run. To be completely transparent, I've been here, like I said earlier, for 8 years. We have never actually held an election. Not because we don't want to, but because it's very hard to find people interested in joining the local water board. I will admit it's not the most glamorous political position on the planet, okay? And so we normally have to go out to the community and kind of recruit and ask people like, hey, do you know anyone who might be interested in joining the board when we have openings? And so all of our elections have been what we call non-contested elections, which means that there's only one seat up for election and only one person wants to join, so we can avoid the cost of paying for an election by having that non-competitive election, excuse me. So, like I said, there's a good opportunity that if you joined, I don't think it would be that stressful for you all to have somebody join. So. The last time we held an election and actually had voters was 2014, and we had 615 people participate in the election district-wide. There's a lot more than 615 people that live in Apache Shores is the point I'm trying to make. So I don't think it's doubtful that if you had interest from members in your community that you could get someone elected to the board. Okay. Will our fees fund other projects outside of Apache Shores? It's a great question. The answer is absolutely not. They currently do not, and they will not in the future. As a defined area, you are treated as your own separate entity from the district, and so all those monies are segregated. And so anything that would be pulled in is purely based on a debt service calculation. So the way we set tax rates every year is that the board has a tax rate consultant, an outside individual, that we pay to look at the outstanding bonds that exist, how much money we have in the bank for that particular area, because sometimes we can do what's called buying down the bond, which means that we will make an extra payment so that we can take your tax rate down a few notches, okay? Normally that starts to happen after about year 15 of a tax rate. And then things precipitously fall over time. And so the best example I can give you is Steiner Ranch, right? So their highest tax rate was close to $1 per AV. And they're currently, this year, they will be paying around 15 cents. Now, it's taken them 20 years to do that, okay? They also had significantly more debt than what you're talking about here. They were close to $140 million in total outlay. So it's a different scenario, but just to give you a kind of an idea that the tax rates are not going to, if we go to that maximum tax rate of 37 cents that I showed you earlier, it's not going to sit there for 35 years and just be there forever, okay? It will come down over time. And obviously, if we can get any of this work done cheaper, that will help, and I'll discuss a little bit of that in a second. Okay, if we choose to join the district and get the required signatures, can you clarify who's going to be eligible to the vote? And again, it's all residents that are legally allowed to vote can vote, okay? I can't give you any more guidance other than to say that you can reach out to your local Travis County election official to get guidance if you are curious or not sure what that means for you. So who can vote on the ballot, and do only property owners vote on the ballot? So the answer is no. Anyone who is a resident in Apache Shores will be eligible to vote yes or no. For the engineering estimates, what happens to the 30% contingency if a project comes in under budget or if less funds are incurred? The initial answer I wrote here, which I said was nothing, is a bit misleading. So again, the number is for planning purposes, right? So we will estimate a line repair job at, say, $2 million, and that includes a 30% contingency. So what we're really thinking is that the work is probably about 1.5 million. But we know inevitably on every construction-related project, whether you're building a house, a shed, or a water line, there are always going to be costs that you don't expect. You're going to get to a particular part of the road, and there will be a shelf of granite there that shouldn't be there, and you aren't expecting it, and now you have to jog the line around that, and so costs get incurred. Normally for a project, when you're at the point where you're awarding the bid, that number is about 10%. That's what we plan for, okay? But when we're in this super early planning stage where we haven't even gotten through actual design, we have to assume that higher number of 30%. But again, the only money that will get spent is the amount of the bid that the board awards. And I can tell you right now that sometimes the board doesn't award a bid. We had 2 projects last year that went out to advertising. We got responses back in, and they were fantastically higher than we expected, okay? The board's not obligated to award that bid. They just don't. And then we get with our engineering team and we assess, like, why did these come in higher? Let's start calling around, let's find out, right? So in one particular instance, we just had bad timing. All of the companies that normally work with us were built, they were filled up. They had plenty of work. They weren't able to bid on our project. And so we had a lot of people from out of town that were just kind of throwing numbers at the wall and seeing whether or not they would stick. And so the board is not going to make poor financial decisions. I can tell you that they treat this money as though it is their own personal money, which is the same way that I treat it, okay? And again, if you're part of the district, then you'll have a voice in that process. And that would, I hope that would be a little bit more reassuring to everyone as well. But again, the only money that will be spent is the amount of money that the board awards as part of a contract. Okay, so next steps. We have already submitted what we call a project information form, which is the initial application to the Water Development Board. And the purpose for that is so that we can try to get an idea of what kind of money they're going to have available for your community. We do have some advantages, okay? Because of the extensive waterline repair history that we have here at Apache Shores, and I kind of breezed through it on one of the earlier slides. Again, you guys represent about 11% of our customer base, but 35% of the leaks that take place in my district happen here. And it's because of the old lines and the depth that they were installed at and all those factors, okay? But that's a big help, because one of the big things, if everyone was, you may not have paid attention to it, honestly. If you're not in the water world, I could understand why you didn't. But last legislative session, the legislature established a $1 billion state water fund. And one of the main purposes of that fund is to eliminate leaking systems, okay? They're currently working through this legislative session to add another $1 billion every year for the next 5 years as well. And so that's one avenue that we can apply for and try to get some access to either free or low interest money. The second thing we can do, which we won't be able to make part of this year's application, but it will be able to be part of next year's, is we've spoken with the county. I've spoken directly with Commissioner Howard about this, and she's going to support us. The county recently got certified by the Texas Water Development Board to conduct what they call socioeconomic surveys. So that survey allows us to show that if the median income in Apache Shores is less than the statewide median income, which is $57,000 a year, then we can get access to actually free money, okay? So we're gonna work with the county this summer to have them conduct that socioeconomic survey for us here in Apache Shores. And then obviously depending upon the results, okay, we'll determine where we're gonna fall on their scale. And so essentially what it means is that we could get access to 100% completely free money, okay? The amount will be up to them. They're not necessarily gonna cut me a check for $59 million right off the block. We are working with a funding professional, and that's all he does is work with the Water Development Board on these applications. In his experience, what he has seen is that the state prefers to spread the truly free money around to as many communities as they can. And if you think about it from their perspective, it makes the most sense. They want to be able to say that they're helping 75 communities across the state of Texas with a grant to fix leaking water systems. They don't want to say that they gave it all to Apache Shores, right? But the beauty is you can reapply the next year, right, and ask for more. The second level is a 90% forgiveness, and the third is a 70% forgiveness. And so if we fall within that median income level for the socioeconomic survey, we have access to all three of those levels. And it will just depend upon how much money they're giving out that year and where we rank out compared to other systems that are applying. It's a little bit of a convoluted process. But we will get a good look at it this year. So what we're applying for this year is their low interest loan programs because we don't have the results from the socioeconomic survey. We would have needed to have those already in hand and reviewed and approved by the Water Development Board by March to have applied for that this year. But our consultant believes that getting our application in and seeing what low interest money is out there is a smart first step. And so we're going to work on that as we move through the summer and into the fall. Like I said, the capital improvement plan has been completed by our engineers. It's currently at my level for review, and then we will bring it to our board of directors in due time. We're working with Travis County, and then hopefully today, and then in the weeks to follow, we're going to be working with the community to discuss these options and try to get as many of the petition signatures as we can. Okay. That was like a fire hose of stuff, right? I appreciate that. It's a little warm in here too. But now I'd like to open it up, for any and all questions. You're not going to hurt my feelings, okay? I recognize the position we're putting you all in, and so what I'll say is fire away with questions.
Hold on, Jason, before we start that, I'm going to move this microphone up here. We are recording a lot of this for everybody for future reference as well. So I'll move this up here, and if you want to just kind of line up down the middle aisle if you have a question or have a comment, I think that'll probably be the smoothest way to do this. Thanks.
Hello.
Louis, is this good?
Can y'all hear us in the back? Can y'all hear us in the back? Okay. My question is, the way I understand this, one way or the other, we got to do something because y'all are requiring us to replace these water lines for fire prevention. Is that correct? Or is it just because of leakage also?
So it's a little bit of all the above.
Okay.
I will say that the reason why the board has decided to take fast action, right, and start raising that district fee to the level that we're doing it is because of their concerns about the lack of fire protection.
Okay, and these fires that we've seen recently, like you said in Maui and out in California, were they due to inadequate water lines, do you think?
So I'll say it's all of the above, right? And so I can't say, obviously, environmental conditions are going to be the number one factor. There's no question.
Yeah.
But not giving the fire department a fighting chance is just not acceptable to our board or to me, frankly.
Well, and if y'all have decided that, then we don't have a choice in that. That's the fact that we've got to do one or the other, either pay the increased ODF or join the district, correct?
Yeah, the hard answer is yes. The board would prefer to move forward with Apache Shores as partners.
Yeah.
But they're going to move forward.
Okay, and my last question is, if we don't join the district, when does this $300 ODF fee go into effect?
Honest answer, I would say 4 to 5 years, it will build. And so, like I've said before, we're not going to raise the out-of-district fee until we know what it needs to be. And that would be when we're figuring out what the first bond is going to be. Our bond advisor will tell us what the payments are. They go through, they calculate all that. We'll figure out what the debt service on that bond would be. And then the board will divide by, currently it's 1,517 customer accounts, and that will tell us what the monthly rate is going to be, and that's what it'll get set to.
And until that point, then the ODF is going to remain at $80. Is that correct?
The only thing I can promise you is that it will remain at $80 until October 1st. What the board will decide as part of this year's budget program, what I'll tell you is the same thing I told River Ridge, and it's the same advice that I've given to the board, is that if the community is working together with the district to find a solution, I don't agree personally with raising the out-of-district fee.
You mean if we're working to try to join the district?
Correct. If we're making positive progress, and this is going to take time. This isn't going to happen quickly, no matter what we all want.
Right.
And so, but I just don't believe in ratcheting up the out-of-district fee when A, I don't know what the final number actually needs to be because we haven't sold any bonds yet, and B, I don't want to shoot myself and you in the foot, hypothetically, but by ratcheting up the pain when I'm trying to get you guys to work with us, right? It just doesn't make a lot of good sense. So I anticipate that the board is probably going to follow staff recommendations, but at the end of the day, it's their decision.
And one last question with regard to the road repair. When they put in these water lines, are we talking about just making a ditch across the road where they have to patch a single little trough? Or are we talking about tearing up the whole side of the road where they have to completely repave the whole road?
All the above, depending upon the location. So
if we could get any help from y'all on our roads, I sure would like that part of it.
So what I can tell you is that Travis County standards require us, let's say that we affect just the edge of the right-hand side of the road, okay? Travis County requirements require us to do a full road overlay. So you're gonna get a full new road regardless of what I want to pay for, because I'll be honest, I really only want to pay for the half of the road that I'm messing up with a new water line. It's a give and take. That would save you all money because the projects would be cheaper, because I'll be honest, the road work is one of the most expensive parts of the project process. But it does have advantages to you on the back end, because some of these roads are not, the greatest.
Yeah, that's true. I said one last question.
Sorry, Dennis, you had something to add?
Yeah, if they're going to repave the road, but this is not going to bring the road up to county roads that aren't maintained by the county now. Their repaving is not going to flop these roads over to the county's maintenance, because you have to do the ditches and so on. All they're going to do is repave the road. The paving will be to the county standard, but the county won't. A non-county road won't be accepted by the county after they've paved it, because there's more than just the pavement.
So it would be more expensive not having the county redo the roads on our own, without the district, joining the district. Is that what you're saying?
Well, no, what he's saying is that in order to get the county to own your roads and be responsible for taking care of them from that point forward, you have to meet every one of their requirements, which means the width of the road, the amount of ditch you have, what the water runoff function is. And in a lot of parts of Apache Shores, your roads are very tight and you're right up on someone's property line. And there really isn't room to provide that extra right-of-way that the county would normally require. And so while we'll fix the pavement, and the pavement would be the way the county would require it to be, from that point forward, you'll still have to maintain the road.
Okay. Last question. You said if you put in these new, second to last question. Do y'all mind one more question? If you put in these new water lines, are we going to have to go ahead and reconnect our house water lines to these?
No, we'll handle all of that. It would be before the meter, so it won't affect the yard line going to your property.
Okay. Thank you very much. Appreciate y'all coming.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Jason, for
No problem.
meeting with us. I've got a couple of questions. I'll try and do them rapid fire. So of the 46 substandard water lines, is it just purely around the fire flow or gallons per hour or gallons per minute, or are they failing and leaking and the valves are breaking?
All of the above. So all of those lines were already on our water line replacement plan because of the fact that they have extensive leakage history. They also happen to have, when we reassessed the whole system for fire flow, they also happen to be the ones that have fire flow issues too.
Okay, so all 46.
Yeah, they're original lines to Apache Shores.
Okay, got it. And then I just wanted clarification on the 5 cent per $100 value. Like there was like the house is valued at $750,000. That homeowner is going to pay $3,600 a year in taxes under the plan if we get admitted into the district. So on that, if someone has a house that's 1.5 million, are they going to pay $6,300 a year in taxes?
Yeah. I mean, it's a better deal for the medium and lower value properties to join the district. If you have a high value property, if you're down by the lake and you've got like a double lot and a very nice home, yes, I mean, your tax rates are going to be proportionally higher.
And then the other option is everyone pays a flat fee of $300 a month per house or per connection.
And that's an approximation, but yes.
Okay. And then I think that answers my question. This is probably more of an HOA question, but if we're doing this to give the firefighters more of a fighting chance, is there anything we can do to like cut back some of the brush? Like I see cedar trees like growing next to people's houses. And is that something the water district can impose on people to?
So no, unfortunately, fortunately for me, but unfortunately for you, I don't have the power to tell you what to do with your land, right? So what I'll say is that the fire department, ESD6, has a wildfire mitigation program, and they would absolutely love to coordinate with the POA or directly with homeowners. They will come out, they'll give you a free walkthrough, they'll walk you around your property and show you what you need to do. And then for green space areas for the community, they will work with the community, and they get funding from the county and groups like myself. They'll come in and they'll clean out an area. They just did it 2 months ago, I think, in Steiner Ranch. And they brought in a herd of goats too to help with that. But I mean, there's lots of different ways to do it.
Okay.
So.
All right, thank you.
I only have 2 questions.
Shoot.
All right, number 1, worst case scenario on this $60 million in bonds, how long does that repayment schedule look like?
So right now we calculated it for 25 years.
Okay. Second question, on the tax rate of 37 cents per $100, is that on total assessed value or net assessed value? Because for some of us that have been here for a long time, there's a pretty wide gap there.
Right. So what they do is they will base that on your total assessed, but then it goes back to what you pay. So if you are, 65 years or older and you've been living in your home forever, you may have a much lower tax rate. You may be a disabled veteran. You may have other reasons why your tax rate is lower, and it would be in accordance with that tax ruling.
Okay, so just to clarify, if our net assessed value is $500,000, and that's what we're paying on, even though our total assessed value is $1 million, because that's a lot here, we're paying based upon the $500,000.
Yeah, it's net assessed just the same way as your school taxes, the fire department taxes, everything you see when you go to the TCAD sheet for your home listed at the bottom. It tells you what value that's based off from, and it would be the same. Yes, sir.
Hi, how's it going? Good. I have a couple of questions related primarily to the cost. So I'm sure you've said you understand that certainly on the right-hand side, that would represent a significant impact to the community for everybody to pay $300 a month. Many people would be displaced, right? Like, it's just no doubt about that. That would be really bad for a lot of households. Even to the right-hand side is not a great situation to be in, and I guess that represents something like a worst-case scenario. At least that's my understanding of what you've said so far.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so I guess my question is, why only the 2 options? Surely it kind of feels like we're being strong-armed, right? Because on the one hand, if we don't join the district, well, there's $300 a month. Most people aren't going to be able to afford that. Not to mention, like, just in general, it could be a pretty significant economic hardship for a lot of people in the years ahead. So that's really bad. But the only other option that we're being presented with is to join the district and have to take out a $60 million bond, which might end up being $120 million by the end of the repayment. That's pretty bad too.
Yep.
So I think a lot of people in the community might feel a lot better if we were able to become part of the district without agreeing to necessarily a huge bond increase right off the bat. If we had some representation on the board, maybe we could come to an agreement about something else, right? Like, there might be options other than this going forward. Particularly, we've mentioned, maybe the state or the county can raise funds, or perhaps there's grant money. A lot of these options are on the table, but when you're presented with this, it's going to be hard to get people to join the district because both options seem really bad.
Yeah, I can appreciate that. I'm sure it probably doesn't feel that way because I end up having to be the messenger, okay? But I do appreciate the position that you're all in. What I can tell you is that there's no good solution to this. None.
Well, I mean,
no matter,
we could think of better solutions, though, I think is
well,
what I'm
I
trying
think
to say.
I think I walked you guys through that. We're working towards that.
Yeah.
But I can tell you that right now, right, just from a practicality standpoint, I don't want to have to be responsible for administering, tracking any bond that I don't have to, right? So if I can find any way to weasel some money out of the state, out of the county, out of the Water Development Board, whatever it may be, we're going to do our damnedest to do that because, honest to God, in the long run, it makes my life infinitely easier, okay? But I just don't believe in showing you anything other than the worst case scenario. Because if I show you a rosy scenario that says, oh, I'm sure we'll get half of this money for free, and then I have to come back to you 2 years later and tell you, well, that thing I said about that, it's actually going to be double.
Well, it's a significant time between now and, when all of the bonds would have to be purchased over the course of 20 or 30 years or however long it is, right? And so if we agreed to join the district, but didn't agree right off to the idea that we would have to start buying bonds right away, then that would, and perhaps we can, we have some money set aside for current repairs, and we have, obviously we could pay the annual tax, but I think that the significant difference is that we would be able to try to raise money in the interim, and we wouldn't be on the hook for a lot of repairs right away.
So what I can say is that we're hamstrung by a couple of different things, right? First of all, it's that Apache Shores didn't join the district in 1998. That's the biggest issue. Once you join the district, the board no longer has leverage. I'm just being frank with you. They can't come in here, because part of you joining the district, the vote that you're going to conduct will be to set a maximum tax rate for your defined area. Okay? And so if we go through this process and we followed your plan, and so your maximum tax rate would be 0 because we're not planning on spending any money right off, the district would be hamstrung because what happens if 2 years from now we decide, okay, we're ready, we found a bond, we got half of it for free, so that's great, but now I need to assess a tax rate. I then have to hold an election. If Apache Shores doesn't vote in favor, I can't assess it, which means that I can't do the work. Right now, the district has the power to do the work, whether you want it done or not. And the reality is that
understand this.
Sure, go ahead.
This part about doing the work, right? It's an impact to our community, right? So fundamentally, it should be a decision amongst our community about what work needs to be done. And these options don't represent that, right?
So I think they do. You guys have the choice, right? The issue is, and let me just be frank with you, okay? The dangers that exist from a major fire conflagration in Apache Shores don't just affect Apache Shores. The reality is that embers fly for 3 to 5 miles. It's that simple. So even if the ESD comes in here and they're like, oop, Apache Shores, 60% of it's going to burn to the ground, we're just going to pull back and let that happen. Does that increase the safety of the rest of my service area? No, it does not. It increases the danger
Right.
significantly. And I'm just telling you from my board's
No,
point
I mean,
of view.
I totally understand that. I wonder if I work in risk assessment for nuclear power plants. And so when we create a risk assessment, there's numbers, right? And here we're not seeing any numbers. We don't know what the 5, 10, 20-year risk for a fire danger is in Apache Shores. We're just saying, oh, we saw some stuff at Maui, and like, we're scared of that. And like, I respect that, okay, like, there's definitely danger of fire. We're not oblivious to that fact. But also, if you're asking us to spend $120 million, there should be some risk assessment. We should know, we should have some number in front of us. This is why you should spend $120 million. It shouldn't just be the board has decided because they feel their communities are at risk. Before you said, like they don't have any decision about what Apache Shores, that they don't care like what happens, but obviously they do care.
No, that's
right?
not true at all. They absolutely do care. They feel a responsibility because they provide services to this area. And the reality is that we do have a number. The number is 60% of all water lines in Apache Shores don't even have a fire hydrant.
No, but
forget
that's not
about
the
fire
risk of
flow.
fire. That's not the risk of fire. Right?
I'm not saying that,
No,
but the
what
risk
we're
of
saying, that's a huge difference, right? That's fundamentally how we have to understand the risk. What is actually the risk of fire happening?
I think we're applying too much emphasis to the fact that these water lines not only have a fire flow issue, they also have leakage and construction issues that prior to all of this required their replacement. And I'm just being transparent with you. Let's say that these fire issues had never happened in Maui and had never happened on the West Coast. We would still be raising your out-of-district fee every single year as long as I'm here, because the rate, as I showed you on this third slide, the rate at which I'm collecting money is almost triple the lifespan of a brand new water line. And that is not an acceptable level of long-term maintenance and upkeep of your capital assets.
That's okay. Like we agree. Like we would like the water lines to be up to standard, right? But what we can't agree to is something that's going to force, 10, 20. What's the percentage that we're willing to like sacrifice from the community? Not to mention the tremendous pressure it puts on everybody. You can't make other upgrades to your house. Everything else gets put away, right? We're talking about a lot of yearly money that would otherwise probably be spent on someone's home. So that's not going to get spent. So that's a tremendous downward pressure on the community as well. So all this stuff is great, but we're just talking about like $60 million, right? Well, like it's our money, right? Like we're $60 million out of Apache Shores, right? So how do we reconcile this? Like I think we should just put the fire risk aside. Like, yeah, we all know that fire is a danger, but in this, not just this community, but communities across Texas. Sorry, guys. I apologize. Okay.
Let me just say something real
I
quick.
guess fundamentally my question is like, why can't we have other options on the table?
Let me answer that real quick, if I can.
Go ahead, Doug.
Just from the Apache Shores board perspective, we have not taken a position on what way we want to go, what way we're pushing to go. This is Apache Shores. This is not an Apache Shores board decision. This is a community decision. Exactly why we're having this town hall, and we've had several over the last 6 months. This is why we set up the independent water committee to explore other options. Honestly, not just the two that they presented, but also kind of, and I don't want to say to help you sharpen your pencil, but it's kind of in that exercise,
It
these
pushes.
numbers have been
Yeah, it's
adjusting
good.
a little bit to kind of check and balance on their two options and explore other options. So I would suggest, it sounds like you've got some great experience. If you want to join the water committee to help us explore those other options that you allude to, that would be fantastic, because we're all looking for solutions. That's the one thing that everyone in this room is trying to do, is figure out a solution. We've got different ideas on it, but we'd like to find a solution.
I guess finally, why is the board set on acting right away?
Well, I don't think a 10-year timeline is set on acting right away. So I think it's called prudent planning, right? What the board has decided is that allowing a never-ending timeline, which is the timeline that you're currently on at $80 a month, will never actually finish any of the work, ever. It will go on and on and on and on forever. And so what they've decided is that we need a actual timeline. And 10 years, I'll be honest with you, if it was my deal, I would want this work done in 2 years, right? It's not practical. It's also not financially viable for the community because the prices skyrocket if I try to do it that way. because I'd have to hire extra staff and all kinds of other things will have to happen. What I can say is that a 10-year timeline is not unrealistic for something of this scale. And I feel like it meets a middle ground of being responsive to the issue, but also understanding that these things do take time. And it will take us time to get there, right? I don't want to lose sight of the fact that our number one priority is to get you guys as free or as cheap money as possible. That's it. But I would be 100% wrong to not show you what the worst case scenario could be, because this is a huge decision. If you want to join the district, it's a huge decision. And if I showed you anything less than what the worst case tax rate would be, I would be a fraud.
I guess this raises another question, right? So say, yeah, I'm sorry, this is important, and
You're fine. Go ahead. Go ahead.
Chill. Which is, okay, so say we want to join the district, we go through all the steps, there's an election, somebody would have to be replaced from another community on the board by somebody that we win an election. And so then the question is well, we have one seat on the board. What's to stop the board from just doing the worst case scenario anyway?
Well, when you join the district, the election sets the maximum tax rate. They cannot raise the taxes above that, period, which is why I'm trying to show you the worst case number. And the real number will be finalized in the process when we go through it. So if we're able to get some cheaper money out of the Water Development Board, then everything shrinks. But again, I want to show you what the worst case is. But the reality is, if you guys agree to come into the district and you vote in favor of establishing a defined area, it will set in the ballot language what the cap will be for your tax rate. And the board cannot raise it above that, period. End of story. So
how does that language get decided on?
I'm going to cut this off right here.
Sure.
It's a lot of questions.
Question. I hope
It is.
somebody
It is.
figures out
If
how
we've
that
got time at the end, we've got a
percent
whole
gets decided on in the election.
we've got a whole queue behind you. If there's time at the end, please ask the question. Appreciate it.
Hi, I'm Doug Saley. I've been on the board for about 20 years, been in the neighborhood for about 40 years. Do you know about the South water well property from the old water company?
yeah, so we have a couple of different properties that used to hold water wells. The building we just built here used to be your old well site 3,
Yeah.
and then off Sicaro there was another one. Those are the two that I'm familiar with.
Well, there's 4 lots down there that when I was talking with Debbie Gurns years ago, she was saving those to sell and put the money back into Apache Shores water to improve it. And I was wondering if that's being looked at all to sell those and bring in probably $700,000 to $800,000 and reduce things.
So the district, we have the option to sell land. We're not allowed to buy and hold land to raise money. And so we just have to be careful that we have an established purpose of what we're selling the land for. I can't just sell it and take it as a profit and throw the money in the bank. I have to have it associated with anticipated upcoming work, but that's definitely an
We've got
option.
that.
We've got those 4 lots over there, and
they've
you
got
know,
people-
I will say that normally boards don't like to give up land because of how hard it is to get new land if you may need it for a operational reason.
Well-
But I don't necessarily, to be honest with you, know of any operational reason we would have for those lots.
Those 4 lots cost Water District 17 $1 when they bought all of the Apache Shores Water District. If I remember right, they bought it for $1. Those lots are pretty much, I'm guessing, I'm not a realtor, 170, maybe $150,000, something like that. That would be a big help to getting some water put in down there.
And that's definitely something we can consider. It's a great point.
It's been considered since Debbie Gurns and way back when, and some of the years I've been on, so I'd like to push that a little bit higher up on the list. And
Yeah.
it wasn't even mentioned tonight, and that would have helped. The other thing is when people do pay, whether it's $300 or whether it's in the district, does that money go to, say, building a structure like you're doing over here?
No, so that structure is financed out of our O&M. It has nothing to do with any of our segregated areas.
Okay, that's all I got. Thanks.
Thank you.
I'm a little bit shorter. So I just wanted to go back to the out-of-district fee. I have 2 lots, so 2 accounts. Would I have to pay $600?
So if you have two separate water accounts,
No, one water.
yeah, so if you remain out of district, and this is the other painful part, right? Only the people that have an account will pay. That's it. You don't pay by lot. So if you own 10 lots, but you only have one water meter, you only pay once.
That's all I had.
To follow on that last question, for moving forward, is there a mechanism to, or would you consider, and I'm not saying this would be a good idea or a bad idea, but would you consider a raised impact fee for new meters? Put a line in the sand saying from 2026 forward, there could be a higher impact fee for new meters as part of the, if for the out of district option.
Right, and so our water capital improvement plan is what drives the price for the impact fees, and that is a district-wide calculation. And so no, we can't charge people on Apache Shores differently than we charge someone on Hudson Bend or Steiner Ranch or anywhere else. And so everyone has to pay a fair share calculated against what we do is we take essentially the total cost to create and build our system and divide that by the total amount of water it can serve, and that's how much people pay per unit.
A couple questions. One, with the election, that's a district-wide election, so we don't vote any differently on that than any other members, or is what we see on our ballot different from anyone else within?
Yours will be different. So yours will say it'll have the specific language about the fact that there's been a capital improvement plan, it's been approved, and based on that, a maximum tax rate will be blank cents per $100 of AV. And you'll vote yes or no. For everyone else that's outside of Apache Shores, they would be voting yes or no, do I want to add Apache Shores to the district?
Okay, so we do control what happens here.
Yes, sir.
And second question, with the, I think it was 5.25 interest rate, does that hold? Interest rates go up or down? Can we refinance? Things go down?
Yeah, that's a great question. So yes, again, that's a placeholder number. From what our bond advisor has told us, if we were to go to market right now, the number would probably be closer to 4.5%. But we'll say the economy's in a little bit of flux right now, and so we wanted to have a conservative number. But we certainly can finance the same way you refinance your home. What we can't change is the total debt. We can't increase the debt by even a penny. So the refinance has to be a large enough percentage drop so that the cost of refinancing still doesn't increase the overall debt. And I can't change the length of the period of time because obviously the investors want to get their dollars out of it too. But that's exactly how we were able to reduce the debt load in a lot of other areas. So 2014 through 2020, basically, the interest rates were very competitive, and almost every one of the district's bonds was refinanced during that time period, including the existing bond that you all have. Yes, ma'am. Yeah, go ahead. You can just either point it down, or if you squeeze that part at the, well, that'll work too.
How you doing? Out of the conversations, we haven't had any talk about the current drought. So your guys' is there a plan for the drought? Obviously, you can see how low the lake is. So you could see picture A, B, and C, but what's going to happen with the lake? And
Yeah.
that is your main water source, is that correct?
That is our only water source.
So the fire hydrants, you can have all the fire hydrants you want. Clearly, that's going to come from the lake. When you have a wildfire, what is their plan? I mean, when you have huge wildfires, they're dropping planes with the stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So clearly, they're going to have both options. So what is the drought plan?
Yeah, so I'll say it's multi-layered. The LCRA controls the Highland Lakes as a reservoir system. I know we all like to talk about them as lakes and rivers, but
Yes.
it's a reservoir system.
The Highland Chains.
Yes, ma'am. And so they have made mandatory a drought contingency plan that we're a part of, as well as every other municipal partner that they sell water to. And so right now, we're in stage 2 of that
Yes.
plan, which allows us, once per week watering, okay? The current lake level, we're sitting at 636 and some change.
Yep.
Based upon the NOAA predictions, we're expected to have a hotter than normal and drier than normal summer and fall. The expectation is that we will likely be around 620 feet by the fall, which would result in us going to stage 3, which is no outdoor watering.
Yes.
And then, if necessary, if the lake gets down to about 600 feet, we would go to stage 4, which is a curtailment of all outdoor water use, so fountains, pools, everything. And that's how the process works. It's designed so, like in stage 2, we're supposed to reduce the amount of water we sell by 20%.
Okay.
In stage 3, we have to reduce the amount of water we sell by 30%. And then stage 4, if we get to that point, I don't want to call it an end-of-day scenario, but pretty damn serious.
Yes.
Right? You're going to see it on the news every day, and I'm just be honest with you, what we're going to be talking about is every drop counts. And so I will say that the Highland Lakes, unfortunately for those of us who live on it, they're designed to operate this way. It is a purposeful bathtub that is only refilled, honest to God, through
I know.
force of God type events, major flooding events.
Yes.
And so that's essentially what we're all hoping for, is that we get some sort of major hurricane combined with multiple rain events like we had in 2018,
Yes.
where we get a rapid flood into the lake and to bring us back.
So
now,
Highland Change is at its lowest it's ever been, is that correct?
no, the lowest we've ever been is 614 feet. And so I would say that we're pretty low, right? But it's not completely unheard of to be in the 630s or even into the high 620s.
And with all the building, so you have all the new apartment buildings, they're not even occupied yet, and the Round Rock project that they're going to pull millions of water.
Yeah, so I can cover that real quick.
Is that going to happen?
So what I can tell you is that the Round Rock thing that you've heard about on the news, while it sounds fantastical and ugly, all that water has already been taken into account. It's already part of what LCRA has, what they call a water management plan. That is a plan that's adjudicated and approved by the state. It involves all the stakeholders, people like myself and other water systems that have to also get involved in the construction of it. But those waters have already been accounted for. It's not like someone's reaching in and taking 100,000 acre feet of water out of the lake that no one was expecting, which is kind of how it's been advertised on the news. I would say that's a little bit of shock value. With construction and development, what I'll tell you is that we plan for what we have under contract from the LCRA, because that's what they're statutorily required to be able to provide me even under the worst drought conditions. And we don't approve work that would take us above that. We are about 89% built out by land mass. And so for developers, they won't want to hear this, but in about 4 to 5 years, we won't have any water left to sell. And what has been developed will be what we've got.
And for each stage that goes up, there's more control. And if you go over, you implement the fines for
Yes, ma'am.
overusage.
That's correct.
And if you continue to get fined, you can pull the meters. Is that correct?
That is correct. Last summer, we had 2 households that we ended up having to remove the meter. But yes.
So at stage 4, is there any plan where so the only way to fill the vast amount clearly is a rain event?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks for taking the time to chat with us today.
No problem.
Just want to ask a little bit about the plan. Looking at the 46 lines, is this meant to be kind of like the catalog of plans that takes into consideration like new developments we'll need to consider in 10 years, or is this the minimum viable product?
So we've assessed all of these lines. Conveniently enough for us, the vast majority of Apache Shores is built out. Okay, and so what we've done is we use what we call land use assumptions. Our engineers take a look at what the average land build is per acre, and we set a limit. And the reality is that let's say that in Apache Shores it's 1 LUE, which is 1 unit of water sales, equivalent to a standard 3-bedroom, 2-bath home. okay, and you want to build 2 houses on your lot, the answer you're going to get from me in about 4 years is no. I don't have the water to sell you.
So.
But the water lines are calculated to handle all of that.
Okay, and the 46 lines are, just to get more clarification on it, the 46 lines cannot be reduced, like there's no smaller number of lines that we could plan to repair in that 56 million?
I wish that were the case, but all 46 of them need to get replaced. The reality is that all of those 46 water lines would be considered the worst water lines in my district, as far as their history of breakage, the material condition of the lines, and the lack of fire flow.
Okay, and is there a way that we can kind of have a chat about that as a community? Because I think some of these kind of could be chatted about.
What do you mean by chat about?
Like there's like I look at lines 13 and 34, and they only serve a few houses that are down by the water anyways. So it's just some curiosity about why those lines are anticipated to be the ones that are more need to be included.
Yeah, and that's a great question. I understand. I would say that if you owned that house that was there, you would probably want a fire hydrant too.
All right. So okay. Thanks.
Thanks for joining us today.
Yeah, if you squeeze that little thing there on the bottom, yep, you can bring it up.
Okay, Robert Jackson here. Maybe a little bit broader question. First, I noticed Ann Howard's not present, so I'm guessing the county's not represented.
Yeah, so unfortunately, Ann is a little bit busier than me. She's got a lot of things going on. We have been keeping in close contact with her office, and so they're well aware of everything that's going on. It's unfortunate she couldn't make it today, but they were invited.
Yeah, I think that's kind of the sign of some of the concern. So if this were to go forward and we can remain neutral on the pros and cons, our tax rate would remain higher than Steiner Ranch and other tax in the area. Yet we still don't have road infrastructure. We still don't have anything comparable to the sewer and sidewalks that they have. And I know that Steiner Ranch and some of the other neighborhoods are the ones who want this to go forward so that they don't have to spend extra on us. So I would encourage you guys to work with the county, because Apache Shores really deserves a comprehensive plan, including roads and water. And we pay more than our fair taxes if this goes through. We actually pay the most.
I don't disagree with you, but it's also not 100% accurate, and I'd just like to cover that a little bit. So Serene Hills is paying double what this tax rate would be just for water, okay? So that's an example.
I actually did the Serene Hills calculations. So if you add in all the county taxes that they get plus their water districts, ours would actually be higher with this proposal.
Well, I can't speak to what your total tax rates are. All I can tell you is that they pay over 69 cents per $100 of valuation just for water. Yeah. That's all I can speak to is the water.
I'd be glad to break out the spreadsheet. I've done every neighborhood.
I'm with you 100%. What I can say is that
the core piece that we get very little support.
Well, let me finish, and I'll address the parts that I can address. Which all I can address is the water piece. Okay, I can't speak to the rest. What I can tell you is that the reason why Steiner Ranch's tax rate is so low is because they've been paying on it for 25 years. Tax rates fall over time. That's just the facts. So it's not a complete apples to apples. It's more apples to zebras when you're looking at other areas. You got to understand how long have they been paying that tax rate? How long has their debt service been in place? How many times has it been restructured or refinanced to lower it? All of those things come into play. I completely agree with you. You want to make sure that you're getting the services that your area deserves. I don't disagree with that at all. What I can tell you is that the only thing that I have influence over is the effect of the tax rate related to the water system. And unfortunately, I can't really weigh in on the rest. It's one of the downfalls, I guess, to limited government. The state of Texas, right? We don't have master planning. It doesn't exist because all of these entities are separate entities. And it's a philosophical viewpoint, but it's the world that we're in, and we have to play the cards that we're dealt.
Yeah, I acknowledge my question was for Ann and the county. Yeah. I understand with the Waters Act. I still will make the point that we're going to pay a higher tax rate, and the damage that this will cause to the roads, there's no plan for.
Well, the roads will be fixed when they're done. That's about the best I can tell you. There will be damage along the way because obviously we're going to have to do the work to put the lines in. Yes, sir.
Hello. The 2023 assessment, what was the extent of it? Surely there wasn't only 46
no,
lines that needed replacing.
Well, that's for Apache Shores. There's 6 more that need to be replaced as well, but those were originally constructed by the district as part of you coming in, and so those are district responsibility to pay for. And I've gotten the board to agree with that, and so those are separate. They're still on the master planning list for Apache Shores, but they are separate from these 46.
Just so I have the numbers right, in the entirety of WCID17's district, only 52 water lines need replacing.
No. I'm
Imminent.
just talking about Apache Shores.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so there are 6 more lines in Apache Shores that also need to be replaced, but those were lines that the district installed when we took your system over. And so what I told the board is I feel strongly that those are our financial responsibility to replace. Those are 6-inch lines that do provide what we call, a medium amount of fire flow. But in the long run, they need to be upgraded to 8-inch lines. And so those will not be assessed against you or your out-of-district fee or your tax rate, whichever direction we end up going. The district will pay for those out of our existing funds.
Those are the main lines, the big lines that you put in already?
Some of them, ma'am, yes.
The scope of the assessment, was it only Apache Shores?
No, it's district-wide.
Okay.
Yes, sir. We have I got a whole list of other lines across the district that need to be replaced. The vast majority of those are due to material condition and age, not due to fire flow.
Can you share how many?
I don't, you have it?
Not off the top of my head, but we do have a plan that's available to review if you'd like to. Yeah.
Because the Maui fires were in August of 2023. So the assessment would have had to happen in the 4 months from August to December. Or maybe
Well,
it's
so
longer.
the assessment wasn't completed until the spring of '24.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
last year.
it's a lot of water lines. We got a little over 200 miles of water lines, and so it takes a while to work through that.
Thank you.
I was curious about the annexation, and we have to get approval from City of Austin and probably, I guess, some Travis County. Is there other taxes that we're subject to or would be subject to if we got annexed?
No, this is purely being annexed into the water district for taxing purposes from the water district. It doesn't open you up to additional tax rates from the city of Austin. I thought of the same thing. I had the same concern when I first started looking at this. They're separate issues.
Okay. And then also, us joining the district, if that were to take place, is there any chance to do it like piecewise? To where some of the grants have certain income level requirements. If we could do it piecewise, it might make it easier to apply for grants.
I'm not 100% sure I understand the question.
So if not necessarily the section 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 like we're currently divided, but can we do piecewise? Like, for example, like he suggested, you have a fire risk assessment, and you say these areas are most of our hot spots. Can we annex those piecewise?
That's a great question. We could, but that particular section would be its own individual defined area, okay, and would have to be large enough to support a tax rate that can pay back the bond associated with the work in that area. And so for practical purposes, the answer is no. If we did it that way, I'd end up with 10 defined areas just within the boundaries of Apache Shores, each with their own tax rates that I have to administer and figure out every year, and each with their own debt service. It would just become kind of an administrative nightmare.
I was just thinking, like, over time, it might be easier for us to absorb financially. So.
Yeah, and that's the reason why we're looking.
And also, if the application for grants changes over time or something, it might give us an opportunity to qualify for something later.
And that's a great point, and that's the reason why we're looking at doing this in a phased approach, so that we will be able to apply, if other grant programs become available over time, right? The reality is that a lot of the grant money that was existing 6 months ago doesn't exist now. And so there was a program through the USDA, which, the federal government has decided they're no longer going to fund that program. Their EPA had programs for waterline replacement. They have subsequently decided in the last few weeks that they're no longer going to fund that program either. And so our options are more limited now than they were, say, 3 months ago. And right now, our greatest opportunities for grants are through the Texas Water Fund.
Okay, thank you.
So I noticed on one of the slides that we had $1 million lying around.
As of December.
How far will that take a water line down a road?
It's about $805 per linear foot.
Okay.
So, 1,200 linear feet, give or take.
Okay. One of the other things I noticed was that, so we're 11% of the service area, but 35% of the leaks.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so 65% of the leaks are somewhere else. Are the 65% of the leaks that are somewhere else, are they paying a leak fee? Or is that just wrapped into their normal water bill and
They
just absorb it?
They pay taxes.
Okay. Okay. So I'm kind of with the other guy, which is it seems like both scenarios are just ramping up the amount of money we're spending, and that if we had more of a gradual plan that we could identify the most, risk of our areas, and we could work on those, and we could do this over a longer period of time, but concentrate on the areas that needed it the most. Sounds like your plan is you're just fixated on just getting this done, and irregardless of the monetary effect that it's going to have on us. And it just seems like you're just full steam ahead, and there's no way we can stop the train. And I'm trying to slow this thing down because we got to process this. Because a lot of people, this is like within the last 2 weeks, the first time they've even heard of this. Yeah. And so they're sitting there going $300 a month. It's like they're living month to month, I've talked to my neighbor about it, but, and several neighbors, and this is going to affect them. I mean, this is like not taking a vacation. This is maybe not, buying a new car or a car. I mean, so I don't know. It seems like we put the brakes on this, come up with another solution, or maybe I'm just not seeing this right. But
I don't disagree with anything you're saying, sir. And in your position, honest to God, I'd be saying the same kind of thing. Okay?
Because you're lowering our property value. You're essentially, this assessment is going to, any person that's going to buy a new house in here is going to see this, and they're going to be like, why am I going to get myself involved in that? It's essentially devaluing all of our properties by adding this bond to it, by adding this extra $300, $200 a month. That's a serious effect on people.
Well, I think value of property is an issue that's a individual case. What I can tell you is if you're let's say you just bought here and you plan to be here for the next 20 years, this raises your property value. You're going to have good quality services that ensure that your home's protected in case you have a fire at your house. Right now, that doesn't exist. For some people, that's important.
You say it doesn't exist, but I disagree. I've got 100 PSI at my house, and I'm on Chisholm Trail. I'm in the middle of the street. And I'm sitting here going, I've got to have a pressure-reducing valve at the street because the pressure's so damn high there.
Right, but pressure is not the same thing as having a fire hydrant that actually produces water.
It didn't help Steiner Ranch, now did it?
Well, what I would tell you, it absolutely did. They only lost 11 homes.
Steiner Ranch, so I built a house in Steiner Ranch, and you know where that fire stopped? It stopped at the house I built for two reasons. One, I used hardy siding, and two, I mowed the back of the greenbelt and created a fire break. Not a single house above the house I built burnt, and all the houses below it burnt. There's other ways to manage fire risk besides this.
I don't think anyone's saying, sir, that this is a golden pill will solve all future fires. Okay? No one's saying that. There are 1,000 variables that come into how a fire proceeds and how it spreads.
Okay, your opening statement, you started with Maui to scare the shit out of everybody, right?
Well, I'm going to be honest with you. It scares it out of me.
Okay, but fire is uncontrollable to some degree.
Absolutely, no doubt.
Okay.
But I don't.
And we just got all of our trees trimmed in Apache Shores because, it was knocking out power every time we had a windstorm. So that's going to help. The fire in Steiner started because the high power lines, got knocked down and the fire started. Well, they just replaced all the power lines with all the pylons all the way up there, probably to prevent that from happening again.
Right.
So, look, I don't want to.
I appreciate.
I don't want to be too angry.
No, I understand.
But it just seems like it's dumped on me all of a sudden. It's a huge amount. I'm only given two options. Both of them are bad, and I either got to take some time to absorb this, or we need to think of a third option. Well, a little bit less,
What I can tell you is that this conversation, I'm not expecting that we're going to make a decision here in the next 3 months. I've told the board that this process of bringing, let's say you all want to join the district. We decide we're going to head that direction. That's a 2-year process. What I've shown you as an outline for a timeline of being on the May of 26 election ballot, that's aggressive, right? But we have to start the conversation sooner or later, right? And I realize that these are scary numbers to look at. But again, I would be 100% dishonest if I didn't come in here with the worst case scenario. And you can say that, oh, I'm just trying to scare the crud out of people. I'm not. I'm trying to give you guys the facts so that you can make the decisions that you feel are in the best interest of you and your property. And I don't pretend to know what your situation is. I don't pretend to tell you what is the right answer.
I'd like to see a map. You want to help me out? I
Sure.
want to see a map of Apache Shores. I want to see your water lines, and I want to see which areas are the worst.
It's
as far as pressure.
it's in the last
and then
page of
why
the.
are we going down a cul-de-sac to put a line to 3 people? That doesn't make any sense at all.
The map's in the handout.
Thank you. Thank you.
Just real quick, just in the interest of time, we've got a hard stop here in about 10 minutes because we have an annual meeting coming up at 4 o'clock. So I'm going to let these last 3 up here ask their fine questions and maybe a couple follow-ups up here, and then we'll close this out. Thanks.
Yes, ma'am.
Hi, I have a couple of questions. One of the things I keep hearing from these people are they keep saying I'm going to be paying more. Well, if I'm paying $80 a month in out of districts, that's approximately $1,000 a month. My house is, say, $400,000 home. I will be saving money every year by joining the district and paying for those bonds, correct?
Yes, ma'am. But it's an individual decision for each person,
Right,
depending.
I understand
Yes, ma'am.
that. But so where is the break that on the house amount where somebody would actually be paying more than the $1,000 a year in the out-of-district fee? 850? Okay, so 800,000, let's just round it off. So all these people here are all in an uproar about paying more money. It irritates me not being in the district, and I tried multiple times back when the out-of-district fee was only $6 to get us to join the district with help from Debbie Jurnis, or Gurnis, however you pronounce her last name. And it irritates me that I'm paying $80 a month when somebody that owns a $1 million home is also paying $80 a month, and mine's only $400,000. So I am paying for these people with these really rich homes, and it's not fair. So being in district would make it fair, where everybody is paying the same amount of money.
That's correct. All I can say, ma'am, is that it's an individual thing for each personal property owner.
Well, and I get that,
Yeah.
but I just wanted to clarify that for people because everybody's here is like, oh, well, I'll be paying more money. No, you won't be paying more money if we join the district. We will get some of these things done that need to be done, that have needed to be done for 20 years. These different lines that are broken and stuff. And it'll be fair to the people in Apache Shores that don't have these $1 million or $900,000 and up homes. And when we get to $300 a month, there'll be nobody in this Apache Shores that's not saving money. So I'm just wondering, when you're talking about our tax value, the taxes would be on the bonds only, or would we pay another additional tax to be in district?
Yes, ma'am. So you'd pay the bond tax rate, which right now, worst case scenario, we calculated to 37 cents.
Okay.
And you would also pay the 5-cent district O&M tax, and that's included in the calculation you see on the screen.
Okay, so then.
That's all of it together.
Okay, so we would be paying both.
That's correct.
But we would have the right to vote, because right now, Apache Shores owners, Water District 17 can come in tomorrow and say, we're going to take $1 million worth of bonds out, and you're required to pay them back, and we have absolutely no say-so.
That's
so
correct.
If we were in district, we could vote on how we want these bonds taken out in the future.
That's correct.
So say the first bond's taken out, and then the next one comes up If we're in district, we can vote at that time and say, well, we think that one's too much or not enough, or we want to do this, or we'd like to look at it like that. Y'all are looking at this as just an increase in money, and it's not just money. Right now, you have no control at all over what Water District 17 does. And luckily, they've been nice to us, because they could, if they want, the board could go tomorrow and say, okay, we're going to start charging you $300 a month tomorrow.
That's correct.
And we could do nothing about it. So you all need to really think about this when you're thinking about the money. It's not just the money, it's the fact you could put somebody on the board and that we have a vote. Because right now, we don't.
Go ahead.
Okay, so you have 1,500 some odd current customers in
Yes,
Apache
sir.
Shores. All right, would only having 1,000 change that at all? Change the whole plan? Worst case scenario of having to replace everything, would there be enough capacity, or is it?
Well, yeah, I mean, the more people that are connected to the system, right? If you're out of district, then the more people I have to divide by, and the number becomes smaller per property.
Okay. Okay. So at a $500,000 valuation, worst case over 25 years, we're out 50 grand. If your house is worth $1 million, you're out 100 grand. To the board, currently in our deed restrictions, we cannot drill wells. A well is going to run you 15, maybe 20 grand. 25 grand, okay, at the worst. Okay. Regardless, it's going to be less than 100 grand for someone who has $1 million valuation. Do we have any vessel as a community to change those deed restrictions so that the people that do want to opt out can do their own thing? Okay. And we can put that on a ballot for a vote. And does that have to be community-wide or section-wide?
Short answer is yes, we have the capacity to do that, except at the moment, Section 5 has not voted to be able to change their restrictions, so they would need to vote for that ability first or in conjunction. And as it stands, those votes would be independent by section.
Okay.
So
When you guys bought from us, did you put a stipulation in there that we have to get water from you?
So your system has to get water from the district. If you want to individually put a well in, that's your right, provided you meet whatever requirements there are locally through the POA. You also now have to get permission from the Western Travis County Groundwater Conservation District, and you have to get approval from them. What I will tell you is that the groundwater, there's a reason why you're connected to our system. The groundwater here is brackish. It's hard, very hard, and it's also hard to get consistent access to. And so if you want to go that route and the POA decides to go allow that, then by all means, I wish you nothing but the best. I would give you a 5-year time span before you'll come back to the district and ask for water, because the water table is not consistent here in Apache Shores. That's the biggest reason why your system failed in the first place. It's not because it's a bad option per se. For if you were in another water table, it would probably be a good option. But the reality is that you have a very challenging water table here in Apache Shores. That's all.
And our wells failed. That's why one of the reasons we went to Water District 17.
That's correct. Ma'am?
I'm also just going to note really quickly, as Jason was saying, there are requirements that you would need to fulfill through the state and other agencies in order to be able to drill a well, whereas the POA may or may not be able to tell you can't do that. The vast majority of properties in Apache Shores, because of their size limitations, would not be eligible to have a well placed on their property legally.
Hi. I've lived in Apache since '94, so I've seen a lot of this stuff for a lot of years. One of the screens that you had on our current funding, the way that we have it right now, you've got 25% of those funds that go to you to do what you need to do. 75% of those funds are in a savings account, currently almost at $1 million. Is somebody babysitting that $1 million? Is it making us money? What's happening with that money?
Yeah, so it's currently invested. All of our, we'll say, excess
Savings
money.
accounts?
Yes, ma'am. They're all invested in either we have through our bank arrangement, we're currently earning 4.5%, which is pretty good. And we have a range of CDs.
Okay,
Money is
that's good.
spread
That's all I
across
need
as
to
well.
know is that somebody's babysitting that money. The other thing that I had is simply, it's been a long time that we've, like she said, we've been fighting being in the district. So the question is what are the other benefits of being part of the district? I totally understand our infrastructure has to be completely redone. I get it. I live on Little Beaver. That pipe breaks every other month. We've got you guys down there. I don't have water. What are the other benefits of becoming part of the water district besides replacing and just the infrastructure? Is there other stuff that we're not being told? What are the pros and cons besides this specific point?
The biggest pro that I can give you is being able to have representation on the board of directors so that you have a vote in the decisions that get made and how they get made. There's some tertiary things that come along with getting these water lines fixed, like you said, the infrastructure, but that would happen whether we sold a bond and had it funded throughout a district or in district. The biggest advantage is just being able to have representation on the board to set direction that your community agrees with.
Thank you so much.
And wouldn't we be eventually able to use the district's money once we pay those bonds down because we're part of the district?
That's correct. So once you're part of the district takes on responsibility, right? These water lines are going to be handled separately through that. But like I said, the other 6 water lines that the board's already acknowledged that we need to pay for those improvements. Those get paid for through O&M tax rates. That's what the O&M tax rate pays for. And so if we needed to do improvements here for stormwater, things like that, those are things that the district funds as projects, and those are things that the board votes on and that ultimately you could vote on if you wanted those improvements in your local area. All right.
Just one quick. Okay, so about 10 or 12 years ago, there was a silt fence put up all along Chisholm Trail, and they were going to replace the line. And that silt fence stayed up for like 2 years. And then one day, boom, the silt fence just disappears. So that line was scheduled to be replaced, and it never got replaced. And I've always wondered, what happened to the money? They were going to start the project. They started the project and put the silt fence in, and that line should have been replaced. What happened?
Well, if it was more than 8 years ago, I can't tell you off the top of my head, but I'd be happy to find out.
Yeah, because it was supposed to be replaced, and that's one of the lines that, and all of a sudden, boom, somebody just came out and took the silt fence. So that was scheduled to be replaced. Sorry.
Yep. All right, before we wrap up real quick, I want to see if Hillary or Dennis have any closing questions, and then we'll close it up.
Jason, I have one question. As folks are going to, potentially sign this petition, he mentioned earlier that there's kind of a difference between signing the petition and then the actual vote. So the petition is per lot, not per owner. So if you have multiple lots, you can sign for each one of them. And then I'd love you to give a little clarity, if you have it, on the actual special election, in that residents of Apache Shores area, so that would be tenants, not just property owners, can vote on that. What about a property owner that, maybe their home isn't here yet, but they're planning to build? Is it property owners plus residents that can vote, or could you maybe not be able to vote on your own property?
Right, so that's a great question. So it's all residents, first and foremost, that are legally allowed to vote can vote. If you're a property owner and you live out of area, if you meet the Travis County requirements as an absentee voter, you can vote. If you have residency established somewhere else, and this is just property that you own here, you are not eligible because you can only vote once per election. And so, contrary to what you might hear. So.
Before we wrap up, if you feel called to sign the petition, you can see the booths around the edge around here to go sign the petition. I want to thank Jason and all of his team for being here today. It's a lot of great questions. We have recorded this, so we'll share it later once we get it all compacted and sent out.
I'll be sticking around. If anybody has any questions that are maybe more personal to your particular lot or whatever, I'm here. And then Will Pena is our engineer, so if you have any construction-related questions, Will would be happy to help you.